Once upon a time, long before the first civilizations rose, before history dared to write its name, gods walked among men, not as distant deities gazing down from the heavens, but as living rulers, shaping empires with their will and bending nature itself to their command. Ancient texts whisper of an age when divine kings ruled the earth for 241,000 years, an era of light and wonder, of power beyond imagination. Golden cities shimmered beneath their gaze. Time itself obeyed their reign. But who were these immortal sovereigns? Were they gods or something far older? And what force erased their age from human memory? Tonight, we step beyond myth and into the forgotten dawn of our world, to uncover the truth of the gods who ruled before time began. In the early 1900s, the world was on the cusp of a discovery that would challenge established historical narratives. A team of archaeologists, led by Hermann Hilprecht, unearthed a clay prism buried beneath the ancient ruins of Nippur, located in present-day Iraq. This seemingly unassuming artifact, composed of fragments not exceeding 8 inches in height, contained information that defied conventional understanding. This prism, now known as the Weld-Blundell Prism, bore a list of kings. These weren't mythical figures or legendary heroes, they were rulers meticulously recorded in an official, almost bureaucratic tone. What truly captivated scholars was not just the detailed names and descriptions, but the numerical data. The Weld-Blundell Prism, swiftly dubbed the Sumerian King List, indicated that some of the earliest kings reigned for tens of thousands of years each. If the average human lifespan hovers around 100 years, how could this be possible? Did these astonishing numbers imply that these kings were non-human? If so, what were they? According to the King List, the first 8 rulers collectively governed Earth for a staggering 241 years. Individual reigns were equally mind-boggling. Some kings ruled for 28,800 years, others for 43,200, and one king alone held the throne for 36,000 years. The most intriguing aspect is the seamless transition within the document itself. The list moves from these impossibly long reigns to names and dates that can be corroborated by modern historical and archaeological evidence. Later kings, such as Gilgamesh, exhibit human lifespans, and their rule is supported by tangible artifacts. This presents a critical dilemma if the latter, verifiable portion of the list is considered factual. On what basis can the equally detailed, yet fantastic, initial part be dismissed as mere myth? This paradox leads to one compelling conclusion. Perhaps these early kings, with their extended lifespans, were indeed divine or at least non-human. Before we delve deeper into the King List, it's important to understand the Sumerians. They were one of the earliest civilizations to emerge on Earth, inhabiting the Sumer region in southern Mesopotamia, an area encompassing present-day Iraq and Kuwait. Flourishing between 4100 and 1750 BCE, they were an advanced ancient civilization known for their innovations in writing, irrigation, and urban development. Given their sophistication, the incredibly long reigns of their early kings, as presented in the King List, strike many as eerie and profoundly challenging to conventional historical thought. For a long time, historians have endeavored to portray the Sumerians in a human-like light, suggesting their rulers would naturally have similar lifespans to ordinary humans. However, the emergence of the King List in the early 1900s has fundamentally challenged this perspective. The unbearably long reigning years of the first 8 kings demand an explanation. As a common rebuttal, historians often categorize these first 8 kings as symbolic, suggesting their reigns are metaphorical storytelling from an early civilization. But this explanation falters when confronted with the precision of the Sumerian data. Why would an ancient civilization use mathematically specific, rounded figures to describe mere fantasy? It simply makes no sense. The puzzle deepens. It's not only the Sumerian civilization that speaks of rulers with extraordinary longevity. Other ancient civilizations, Babylonian, Hindu, and Egyptian, all recount tales of rulers who lived for thousands of years, specifically before a great global flood. This brings us to a crucial point, the same great flood that resonates across numerous cultures and religious texts. According to the King List, this global catastrophe occurred at a conspicuous moment, immediately following the reign of the eighth king. The deluge, it states, wiped away the world. The timing of this event is particularly interesting. Around the same period that the King List records the global flood, geological evidence points to a known significant global sea level rise approximately 10,000 BCE. Such a solid alibi supporting the King List fundamentally alters the nature of our inquiry. We can no longer simply ask, "Is this mythology?" Perhaps the real, more profound question is, who truly ruled Earth before us? Let's now dive into the King List itself. Once upon a civilization, before the rise of towering cities, the advent of written language, or the invention of the wheel, there existed a city named Eridu. The Sumerians believed it was the very first city ever built, established not by nomadic tribes but by the direct command of the gods. And according to the Sumerian King List, kingship itself didn't originate from human systems, it descended from heaven. At the heart of this divine order stood a singular name, Alulim. He was the first king of Eridu, but his significance extended far beyond that. The Sumerians boldly proclaimed him the first king of Earth. Ancient tablets describe Alulim not as a tribal chieftain or a conquering warrior, but as a figure of extraordinary wisdom and stature elevated by celestial authority. He was chosen, not born into power, appointed, not elected. In Eridu, where the foundations of ancient temples now lie hidden beneath layers of sand and time, legends say Alulim ruled from a magnificent ziggurat that shimmered under the sky, a place where heaven and earth intersected. His kingship marked the very dawn of recorded rule, a golden moment that hinted humanity was no longer alone in the cosmos. If that thought evokes a sense of wonder, prepare yourself. The King List states that King Alulim ruled for an astounding 28,800 years. Yes, you read that correctly, not 100 nor 1,000, but 28,800 years. Modern scholars, grappling with such figures, often attempt to dismiss them as symbolic exaggeration. However, the Sumerians themselves did not treat these numbers as mere metaphors. They provided precise figures, consistently rounded to the nearest 600 years, indicating not arbitrary estimates, but rather structured cycles or patterns. Let's break down this numerology. In Sumerian mathematics, the number 600 was a fundamental unit known as a sar. Alulim's reign precisely equated to 8 sars. To the Sumerians, this was not absurd. It was viewed as a cosmic pattern, a reflection of celestial order. Intriguingly, when cross-referenced with ancient Hindu, Egyptian, and even biblical genealogies, similar 1,000-year lifespans appear with uncanny frequency, almost invariably preceding a great global catastrophe. Whether symbolic or literal, these figures undeniably reflect an era when rulers were perceived as something more than mortal. Not fully immortal, perhaps, but certainly operating under different biological laws or cosmic mandates. King Alulim was the first of these extraordinary beings. However, in the 1970s, author Zecharia Sitchin introduced a radical interpretation. Based on his controversial translations of Sumerian texts, Sitchin proposed that kings like Alulim were not human at all, but rather members of an extraterrestrial race known as the Anunnaki, who originated from a distant planet called Nibiru. He argued that these beings initiated human civilization and directly governed humanity for tens of thousands of years. While mainstream scholars largely dismiss Sitchin's work, his theory continues to resonate with those who observe too many overlapping myths and unexplained phenomena across diverse ancient cultures. If Sitchin's theory holds any truth, Alulim wasn't merely a king, he was humanity's first overlord. After the culmination of King Alulim's monumental reign, kingship did not return to the heavens. Instead, it passed to Alalgar, the second ruler of Eridu. According to the Weld-Blundell Prism, Alalgar governed the earth for an astonishing 36,000 years, a tenure that surpassed even Alulim's and further solidified the legacy of divine rule. King Alalgar's reign marked a continuation of an era where kings were not perceived as mere mortals, but as divinely appointed caretakers, wielding authority from forces beyond human comprehension. But what characterized the rule of King Alalgar? Ancient Sumerian texts portray Alalgar as a figure of immense power and visionary leadership. He is often credited with laying the groundwork for early governance, establishing spiritual order, and initiating significant city-building projects. Although detailed archaeological evidence of his personal life remains scarce, his name persists in multiple variants of the King List, testifying to his enduring significance. One thing, however, remains certain: Eridu flourished under Alalgar's guidance. The city transcended its role as a mere spiritual capital, evolving into a sophisticated center of urban and sacred design. Its structures were meticulously aligned with celestial bodies, and its temples were conceived to mirror the constellations above. If King Alulim sparked the flame of kingship, King Alalgar meticulously crafted it into an enduring institution. He didn't just inherit a divine mandate. He is said to have actively built a piece of heaven on earth, beginning with the city of Eridu. Yet, a compelling enigma surrounds this great king's rule. Archaeological excavations in Eridu have uncovered ancient foundations dating back to 5400 BCE. Including the remnants of what may be the world's oldest temple. What strikes researchers as unusual is the sudden and remarkable sophistication of these early structures. The precision of their layout, the advanced engineering techniques, and their astronomical alignments all suggest a pre-existing body of knowledge. A knowledge that seems to leapfrog conventional evolutionary development. This anomaly fuels the theory that Eridu, under rulers like Alalgar, might have functioned as more than just an early city. Perhaps it served as a staging post or even a colonial outpost for a non-human intelligence. If you find yourself questioning why, you are in good company. Astronaut theorists argue that the architectural marvels, the precise astronomical placements, and the sheer antiquity of Eridu strongly imply intentional settlement rather than gradual evolutionary growth. If Alalgar's 36,000 year reign was indeed literal, then what kind of being could possess such longevity and simultaneously orchestrate the construction of an entire city? An alien, perhaps. If Alalgar solidified divine rule, then Enmenloana, the third pre-flood king, expanded it significantly, both in its duration and its influence. According to the Sumerian King List, Enmenloana reigned for a staggering 43,200 years. A perfect 12 sars, a precise and deliberate Sumerian numerical cycle. Such precision strongly suggests this is far too deliberate to be mere fiction. Interestingly, his reign is not recorded in Eridu, but in Bad Tabira, another city shrouded in mystery. Bad Tabira was renowned as the city of the sacred forge, the place where divine metalwork and heavenly materials were first introduced to earth. Enmenloana's reign is intrinsically linked with metallurgy, order, and production, hinting that his role may have been more industrial or technological than purely spiritual. Unlike the preceding kings, there isn't an extensive mythos surrounding his personal deeds. However, his very name suggests a power derived from craftsmanship and creation. What of his seat of rule? Whispers and ancient lore connect Bad Tabira directly to the Anunnaki, who, according to these traditions, utilized the city as one of their primary operational centers on Earth. There is little doubt King Enmenloana was the industrial king, a force that no Sumerian could have foreseen. Let's momentarily delve into his unique domain. In countless ancient cultures, metallurgy transcended a mere craft; it was considered divine. The act of forging metal, transforming raw earth into a tool or a weapon, was seen as a gift bestowed only by gods. In Sumerian myth, The deities who imparted the knowledge of metalworking to humankind were not merely artisans, they were beings of fire, star, and stone. And Enmenloana's position as the ruler of Bad Tibira places him squarely at the center of this profound narrative, and he is not an isolated figure. The Greek Hephaestus, the Egyptian Ptah, and even the Hindu Vishvakarman all share uncanny similarities with the extraterrestrial archetype that Enmenloana appears to represent. One consistent theme emerges: his forging craft was not just physical, it was deeply sacred, mirroring the profound and sacred duration of his 200-year reign. King Enmengalana was the fourth king of the antediluvian era, another ruler originating from Bad Tibira. His name is meticulously etched into the ancient Weld-Blundell Prism, and the King List records his reign as 800 years, precisely mirroring the tenure of the earlier king Alulim. While Alulim symbolized divine authority and Alalgar represented structure and institution building, Enmengalana was distinct. This distinction begins with his name. Enmengalana is translated to mean, Lord of the Celestial Me. This title directly linked him to heavenly knowledge. In Sumerian tradition, Me refers to divine decrees, fundamental laws, and essential knowledge gifted by the gods themselves. Did this imply that Enmengalana possessed something more profound than his predecessors? Indeed, he did. Enmengalana served as a guardian of this sacred, divinely imparted information. He was an intellectual king whose focus was not on warfare or grand construction, but on interfacing with the heavens and preserving cosmic wisdom. His reign in Bad Tibira further cemented the city's mystical significance. For this king, ruling transcended mere metal forging. It is no wonder that researchers propose that under Enmengalana's rule, humanity first began to track celestial cycles and to comprehend the intricate rhythms of the universe. He was that king. So, when contemplating the origins of astronomy, remember that this king, whose reign extended for 800 years, was its supreme master. Whether you identify as a Scorpio or a Sagittarius, there's a compelling possibility that the art of astrology, or at least its foundational observation, originated with King Enmengalana. This was not merely a king who counted seasons, this was a king who read the sky as if it were a sacred scripture. The narrative doesn't end there. The idea that Enmengalana ruled with such profound celestial awareness has led some theorists to suggest he was more than just a scholar. They propose he was a direct representative of the stars themselves. Historians also consider the possibility that such early rulers were not simply influenced by extraterrestrial beings, but were, in fact, a hybrid, a combination of both human and divine. Their overarching goal in this interpretation was to maintain a delicate balance and resonance on Earth. King Enmengalana's deep connection to the Me strongly supports this theory. Perhaps, in modern terms, he could be likened to a cosmic data administrator operating across vast stretches of time. His rule was not about governance in the conventional human sense, it was about maintaining a vital resonance between heaven and earth. This profound role has led scholars to aptly name him the Celestial Engineer. Isn't that an accurate description? But if you are eager to learn about a king who embraced spirituality to an extraordinary degree, King Dumuzid is that man, or perhaps that god. Following Enmengalana, the next in the antediluvian lineage was Dumuzid. Also known as Dumuzi the Shepherd, his name appears not only on the Sumerian King List, but also in later Mesopotamian myths, underscoring his widespread cultural significance. According to the list, he ruled for 36,000 years, presiding from the city of Bad Tibira, just like his predecessor Enmengalana. However, Dumuzid's story uniquely blurs the fundamental distinction between a mortal ruler and a powerful deity. How so, you might ask? King Dumuzid was not primarily remembered as a king of war or a builder of grand infrastructure. Instead, this king's legacy is defined by his profound relationship with the goddess Inanna and his symbolic death and subsequent rebirth. You heard that correctly. He was the king said to die and be born again. This cyclical fate earned him the title shepherd, as he was viewed as a strong, protective, and ultimately sacrificial leader. Another aspect that makes Dumuzid exceptional is that his influence transcends the mere king list. He prominently features in the epic tale of Gilgamesh, in the powerful narrative of Inanna's descent to the underworld, and is celebrated in numerous hymns. Unlike other kings, Dumuzid was gradually absorbed into the divine pantheon over time. His legacy was far more than political, it was profoundly spiritual, almost too good to be true. Indeed, in due course, Dumuzid was no longer regarded as a man. The Sumerians began to revere him as a god of vegetation, of seasonal cycles, and of the dying and reviving earth. His archetypal story resonated deeply, echoing in later myths such as those of Osiris, Tammuz, and even, some argue, in the narrative of Jesus. In the myths, Inanna's dramatic descent to the underworld culminates in Dumuzid being chosen to replace her, suffering a punishment of death for half the year to symbolize seasonal decay. Yet, he always found a way to return every spring, embodying resurrection, a profound archetype that underpins many religions even today. What do you think? Was King Dumuzid merely glorified after his death, or was he always something more, something intrinsically divine? King Dumuzid's reign of an auspicious 36,000 years is a number too exact and too symbolically charged to dismiss. Moreover, his transformation from a respected king to an revered god marked a pivotal turning point in the king list's narrative. After each of his metaphorical rebirths, the Sumerians knew they were no longer dealing with a mere mortal. This was a fundamentally different kind of ruler. King Dumuzid ruled, experienced death, and returned through a cycle of rebirths, and just like his mystical reign, his powerful legacy never faded. The next king on the Sumerian King List did not rule from Eridu or Bad Tabira, but from a city named Larak. To this day, Larak remains a lost city, its physical location undiscovered. His name was Ensipadzaddana, and much like his predecessors, his reign endured for 800 years, a perfect 8 sars. Remarkably little is known about the king himself. He left behind no grand legends, no elaborate myths, and no hymns that celebrate his deeds. And yet, his presence on the king list is precisely and undeniably recorded. So, what distinguished this particular king? What truly sets Ensipadzaddana apart is not what we know of him, but the mysterious location from which he ruled the lost city of Larak. Larak is enumerated as one of the 5 antediluvian cities, explicitly listed in Sumerian myth as existing before the Great Flood. However, despite its legendary status, no physical trace of Larak has ever been found. This stark absence only deepens the enigma. If the Sumerians held these cities in such high reverence as holy sites, and Larak was among them, what could have imbued it with such profound importance? Let's explore Larak for a moment. Ancient texts mention Larak only in fleeting, rare, and brief references. At times, it is described as a city of healing and judgment, possibly linked to the deity Ninurta, the god of war, agriculture, and law. Other scholarly interpretations suggest Larak might have been located in the north of Sumer, perhaps near the Tigris River. Some even propose that Larak could have been entirely metaphorical, a spiritual stronghold, rather than a tangible geographical location. But the mystery extends beyond these theories. Some researchers have dared to propose a bolder idea that Larak, much like Eridu, was a functional component of a vast, ancient global grid. This theory suggests Larak was part of a sophisticated energy system established by the gods themselves, designed to regulate natural and spiritual energies across the land. In such a system, Ensipadzaddana wouldn't have been a king in the modern sense. Instead, he would have been a guardian of cosmic balance. His reign wasn't forgotten. Perhaps it was merely hidden, much like the enigmatic city he governed. Suspicious indeed, wouldn't you agree? The Sumerian King List continues to grow more intriguing. Immediately following King Ensipadzaddana came Emendarana, the ruler of Sippar, another of the 5 fabled antediluvian cities said to have existed before the Great Flood. His reign, according to the meticulously recorded King List, lasted for 21,000 years, a number that perfectly aligns with Sumerian divine mathematical systems of stars and sacred cycles. Enmendarana is renowned for more than just the incredible length of his time on the throne. Ancient texts refer to him as a king who shared a uniquely special relationship with the gods. He was called the ruler who received divine wisdom directly from the heavens. Imagine the profound implications of communicating directly with celestial beings. How truly supreme and awe-inspiring is such an ability? If that concept is already intriguing, prepare for an even more astonishing claim. The most captivating assertion associated with King Enmendarana is that he was taken to heaven without dying. This extraordinary phrase resonates powerfully with another ancient figure, Enoch from the Hebrew book of Genesis. Do you recall his story? Enoch was famously said to have walked with God, and was then taken by the divine without ever experiencing death. The striking parallels between these two narratives have led many researchers to draw direct comparisons. Whose story is the original truth? Or did one myth perhaps influence or derive from the other? Perhaps we may never definitively know. In Mesopotamian texts, Enmendarana is explicitly referred to as the one who was initiated into the secrets of the gods. He is said to have acquired profound knowledge in divination, astronomy, and celestial patterns through his direct communion with divine beings. If you ponder how such an interaction was possible, ancient accounts suggest that King Enmendarana communicated with these beings via a literal craft that transported him high into the heavens. When viewed through this lens, his ascension may not have been a mere metaphor for spiritual enlightenment. It could signify a physical removal, or perhaps even a dimensional shift, placing him beyond the ordinary reach of human experience. This was no ordinary king. He was a living bridge between the terrestrial realm and the divine cosmos. The next king on the Sumerian list played a different, yet equally pivotal, role. Unlike Enmendarana, he did not ascend into heaven never to return. This was a distinct Sumerian king, and what made him special was that he was the very last ruler before the cataclysmic flood. Enter King Obaratutu. He stands as the last of the 8 antediluvian kings meticulously recorded in the Sumerian King List, and he was the ruler of the city of Shuruppak. His reign, though still vastly beyond human comprehension, spanned a mere 18,600 years, the shortest among the pre-flood kings. To the surprise of many, his rule marked a dramatic and fateful turning point in the entire narrative.